Welcome to the Standing in the Gaps News Deep Dive. Today we're going into the ongoing war in Ukraine from a different angle. Forget the political rhetoric.
Yeah.
We're focusing on the ripple effects this conflict is creating, particularly in the energy sector and on the global stage.
Right. It's fascinating how interconnected everything is. We hear about battles and sanctions, but the real story is in the less obvious consequences. Take Ukraine's drone offensive, for example. It's evolved from isolated incidents to a strategically significant campaign impacting Russia's ability to fuel its war machine.
Let's unpack that.
Yeah.
We've got sources detailing Ukraine's increasingly sophisticated drone strikes against key Russian oil infrastructure.
They're hitting targets like the Druzhba oil pipeline, which pumps millions of barrels a day, and the Volgograd refinery, crucial for producing various fuels.
What's the impact?
These strikes are having a measurable impact. One report suggests Russia's oil refining capacity has plummeted by 177% since the war began. They're struggling to produce enough diesel to keep their tanks running, which could significantly hamper their offensive capabilities.
Oh, that's a huge development.
Right.
It's not just the quantity of oil they're losing, it's the types of fuel, too.
Right.
They're facing shortages in aviation kerosene, essential for civilian and military aircraft.
Exactly. This shortage could ground planes, disrupt supply lines, and limit Russia's ability to conduct airstrikes. And those disruptions cascade, impacting the global energy market and oil prices.
Yeah.
Countries reliant on Russian energy are feeling the pinch, and it's creating a complex ripple effect across the world.
And this is where things get really interesting. There's talk of a proposed strategy by the Trump administration to pressure OPEC, specifically Saudi Arabia, to lower oil prices further.
The idea is to cripple Russia's war funding and force them to the negotiating table. Trump claims he has leverage with Saudi Arabia due to his administration's different approach, but it's a controversial strategy.
Wouldn't that just create a whole new set of problems? The relationship between Saudi Arabia, Russia, and the global oil market is incredibly complex. Kremlin. Spokesperson Dmitry Peskov argues the conflict is driven by security concerns, not oil prices.
Is it about security economics or both? What would be the long-term consequences of such a move? It's a high-stakes gamble.
Before we move on, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives like this. And let us know your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you.
Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, sanctions. The U.S. and its allies have imposed a slew of them, targeting Russian oil, specific tankers, insurance companies, and individual oil producers.
So the goal seems clear. Squeeze Russia's oil revenue, hit their war financing, and force a change in their action. But how effective are these sanctions in reality?
Well, it's a mixed bag. Russia has managed to find new buyers for its oil, particularly China and India. And they're exploiting loopholes like ship-to-ship transfers to evade restrictions.
It's like a game of whack-a-mole. They find a workaround and the West tries to plug the hole. But then there's the concept of secondary sanctions. What exactly are those?
Secondary sanctions target anyone helping Russia circumvent restrictions.
Good.
Let's say a Chinese company buys Russian oil above the price cap. The U.S. could threaten to sanction that company, making it too risky to do business with Russia. It's the stick to the carrot of discounted oil.
So it's about creating consequences for those who enable Russia's actions, even if they're not directly involved in the conflict. It adds another layer of pressure.
Precisely. But there's another financial tactic we need to discuss: off-budget war financing.
Off-budget? That sounds shady. What does that even mean?
It's a hidden strategy where Russia is forcing its banks to give loans to businesses supporting the war effort. It's like a secret slush fund, and it's massive.
Wait, how massive?
This off-budget financing has ballooned to $415 billion. It rivals Russia's official defense budget, creating money out of thin air to fund the war.
Wow, that's a huge red flag. But how are they forcing banks to participate in this scheme? Are they threatening them with nationalization or using some legal framework?
Yeah, it appears they're using a combination of legal pressure and implicit threats. They're strong-arming banks into compliance, creating a system where financial institutions are bearing the risk of financing the war effort.
It's not just about whether Russia can afford the war today, but whether their entire financial system can withstand this pressure in the long run. This sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. This off-budget financing is fueling inflation, driving up interest rates for businesses not involved in the war effort, and creating a very real risk of a systemic credit crisis in Russia.
It sounds like they're building their war effort on a foundation of sand, and eventually the whole thing could collapse.
Precisely. And that brings us back to the potential effectiveness of those oil sanctions. By squeezing Russia's revenue, the West hopes to exacerbate these internal pressures, potentially bringing the conflict to an end.
It's a high-stakes gamble with potentially global consequences. And speaking of stakes, we want to remind you that we're also taking a gamble here at Standing in the Gaps. We're passionate about bringing you these deep dives, but we need your help to keep going.
We're a small team with big dreams, and we rely on our listeners to support our mission. If you value independent media, consider heading to our GoFundMe.
Every contribution makes a difference. It helps us invest in better equipment, reach a wider audience, and improve our shows.
Your support allows us to delve deeper and provide nuanced analysis. It's an investment in knowledge and a vote for independent journalism.
Support critical thinking and open dialogue. We couldn't do it without you.
Do you believe in standing strong for what's right? Do you value faith, freedom, and biblical truth in today's ever-changing world? Then we've got something special for you. Welcome to the Standing in the Gaps merch store, the official store of the Standing in the Gaps podcast, where we explore the social, economic, and political issues of today through a biblical lens. Here's what we've got for you. T-shirts that help you make a bold statement everywhere you go. Whether you're standing up for truth or sparking conversations, our shirts reflect the spirit of standing in the gap. Need fuel for those long, thoughtful mornings or deep dive discussions? We've got premium coffee, roasted to perfection, along with sturdy mugs designed to hold that truth-fueled brew. Want to represent your values wherever life takes you? Grab one of our stylish hats to keep you covered, literally and figuratively. And don't miss our inspirational prints that you can frame and hang up at home or in your office. A daily reminder to stand firm in faith. But that's not all. From accessories to gifts, we've got a variety of items that let you stand out while standing strong for what you believe in. Every purchase supports the mission of Standing in the Gaps, helping us continue bringing you insightful content, meaningful conversations, and the courage to face the tough topics. So what are you waiting for? Visit Standing in the Gap's merch store today. Link is in the description. Grab some gear, enjoy some great coffee, and help us keep bridging the gap in today's world. Together, let's stand for truth. Together, let's stand in the gap.
Now let's talk about how this conflict is reshaping the global energy landscape. One major development is the increase in U.S. LNG exports to Europe.
It's helping to replace Russian gas, a major blow to their economy.
It's a significant shift with implications far beyond just energy. It's about power dynamics influence and the reshaping of alliances on a global scale.
It sounds like the ripple effects extend far beyond battlefields. It's impacting everything from global energy markets to the financial stability of nations.
And that's why it's so crucial to understand the nuances, the interconnectedness, and the seemingly small decisions that can have massive, unforeseen consequences.
Speaking of consequences, let's talk about the human cost of this war. While discussing pipelines and sanctions, there are real people caught in the crossfire. Our sources mentioned North Korean soldiers deserting their posts in Russia near the Ukrainian border.
These soldiers are fleeing due to the intensity of the fighting. There are rumors that North Korea might be sending additional troops to support Russia's war effort.
That's a chilling thought. If true, it adds a whole new layer of complexity and raises serious concerns about the potential for escalation.
The U.S. has voiced its unease about this development, calling it a dangerous development. It's a reminder that this conflict has the potential to draw in other nations, leading to unpredictable and potentially devastating consequences.
We can't forget the human cost of this war. Amid the turmoil, there are stories of resilience and international support for Ukraine.
We're seeing countries like the Czech Republic stepping up with substantial aid packages for Ukraine. Czech Foreign Minister Jan Lipavsky highlighted their initiative to provide Ukraine with 1.5 million artillery shells last year, with plans to continue through 2025.
They're discussing joint projects with Germany in the defense industry, focusing on ammunition production, air and missile defense, and repair of armored vehicles.
This support goes beyond short-term aid. It's about helping Ukraine build a sustainable defense infrastructure for the future.
And the Netherlands has really stepped up.
They've emerged as a key player in supporting Ukraine's Air Force. They've been instrumental in the F-16 program, providing training and support for Ukrainian pilots and technicians.
It's not just about providing the hardware, but also the expertise to operate and maintain it.
They're also collaborating on unmanned aerial vehicles and other critical defense systems. This isn't just a regional conflict. It's a global effort to support Ukraine's sovereignty and push back against Russian aggression.
Speaking of global efforts, we've got insights from U.S. Chargé d'Affaires to the OSCE, Catherine Brooker. She emphasized the U.S.'s willingness to ramp up pressure on Russia using sanctions and tariffs to other unspecified measures.
It's a clear message to the Kremlin: get to the negotiating table or face the consequences.
No messing around.
But Brooker also stressed the need for a stable and sustainable end to the war, one that ensures Ukraine's security and prevents future conflicts.
It's like a balancing act. On one hand, they're increasing the pressure, but on the other, they're emphasizing the need for a peaceful resolution that addresses the root causes.
Exactly. It underscores the complexity of the situation and the high stakes. And we can't forget about Trump's call for OPEC plus to lower oil prices. He believes it could be key to ending the war quickly. But as we discussed, it's a controversial move with significant global repercussions.
It's a reminder there are no easy answers. We're dealing with a complex web of interconnected factors, and every decision has the potential to create a ripple effect across the world.
Absolutely. And that's why we encourage you to stay engaged, keep asking questions, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective matters.
Speaking of engagement, we wanted to talk about our mission at Standing in the Gaps. We're passionate about providing in-depth analysis and diverse perspectives on critical issues like the Ukraine war.
But we can't do it without your support. We're a small team with big ambitions, and we rely on our amazing listeners to help us grow. If you're enjoying these deep dives and believe in the work we're doing, we encourage you to head over to our GoFundMe page.
Every contribution, big or small, makes a huge difference. It helps us invest in better equipment, expand our reach, and deliver more insightful content.
Think of it as an investment in knowledge, a way to support independent media, and a chance to be part of a community that values critical thinking and open dialogue.
We couldn't do this without you. Now let's dive into the final piece of this puzzle: Russia's economic stability and their ability to sustain this war effort. Things aren't looking as rosy as the Kremlin might portray. Our sources point to alarming trends, particularly with their off-budget war financing scheme.
Right. Remember that massive $415 billion figure we mentioned? Well, that's starting to have some serious consequences. They're essentially trying to build a house of cards on a shaky foundation.
So they're forcing banks to make risky loans, fueling inflation and driving up interest rates for businesses that aren't involved in the war effort. It sounds like a ticking time bomb.
Exactly. And it's not just about whether they can afford the war today, but whether they can afford the economic fallout down the line. It's a gamble with potentially disastrous consequences.
By squeezing Russia's revenue, the West hopes to exacerbate these internal pressures and force a change in strategy.
However, Russia has proven adept at finding alternative buyers and exploiting loopholes. It's a high-stakes game with the global economy in the balance. Beyond the economic implications, we need to consider the long-term geopolitical consequences.
How will the outcome of this war reshape the global landscape? It's a question with no easy answers.
This conflict isn't just about Ukraine. It's about the future we're shaping together.
That's why it's important to stay informed, engage in critical thinking, and consider the perspectives of all involved. What are your thoughts on questions? Let us know in the comments below. This has been a whirlwind of information.
Yeah.
But we've only scratched the surface of this complex situation.
Well, that's the nature of these deep dives, peeling back layers and revealing the interconnectedness of events.
We've covered everything from drone strikes and oil sanctions to off-budget financing and the potential for a global credit crisis. It's a lot to process.
That's why it's crucial to stay informed, keep asking questions, and challenge narratives we're presented with.
Yeah, remember, folks, we're apolitical here.
Yeah.
Not left, not right. Just trying to understand the facts and their implications. Think about the long-term consequences. How will the outcome of this war reshape the geopolitical landscape, the global energy market, and the balance of global financial systems?
Yeah. These are questions with no easy answers, but we all need to be asking ourselves.
Absolutely. And on that note, we want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you a new perspective on the conflict in Ukraine and its implications.
Staying informed is the first step. The real power lies in critical thinking, open dialogue, and a willingness to challenge the narratives we're presented with.
If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share it with anyone who you think might benefit from this kind of nuanced discussion.
The more perspectives we bring into the conversation, the better equipped we'll be to navigate complexities.
Speaking of navigating complexities, we wanted to talk about our journey at Standing in the Gaps News. We're passionate about in-depth analyses, but we're a small team with big dreams, and we rely on the support of our amazing listeners to keep going.
If you believe in the work we're doing and you want to help us reach a wider audience, consider supporting our GoFundMe campaign.
Every contribution helps us invest in better equipment, so we can improve the quality of our shows and delve even deeper into these complex issues.
Your support allows us to continue providing deep dives and fostering a community of critical thinkers.
Thank you for being a part of this journey. Until next time, stay curious, engaged, and most importantly, stay informed.
Wow. You made it all the way to the end. Congrats. Thank you so much for taking this time with us. If you're interested to know more about what is going on in the Ukraine-Russian war, check out these videos. And thank you for standing in the gaps with us.